Hello everyone, this is the imperishable Sammy Zenith. I'm filming from the changing room once again, except I'm not in Kohl's this time. I'm in Goodwill. So this is my regular outfit. This is the outfit I came into the store with. We're going to be trying out something different today. This outfit's alright, but I wear it a lot, so we're going to be trying something else today. Get ready for the transformation. Wowie 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 wowie. Whoa! Check me out. Yeah. You see, that's an ability I have. It has nothing to do with the video editing. But yeah, this is certainly different, isn't it? I don't know why that wet spot is there. I don't know what that is. It's just there. I don't know if that's a stain or... There are people talking outside. I don't know if they're talking about me. Hello? Okay, I think we're good. Anyways, yeah, that's not what this video is about, though. This video's... Oh, someone knocked. Hello? Okay, anyways, this video is going to be about Super Smash Bros. Basically where the series can go from here, because it seems like we're getting our last round of DLC for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, so... Nevertheless, I think it will be quite some time until we get another installment to the Super Smash Bros. Game, at least until around the time the next Nintendo console comes out after the Switch, which I anticipate will be around, maybe like 2023, you know, like 3 years from now maybe, so we've got a while until then, but yeah, I mean, might as well speculate, like, where can they possibly go from here? Because Super Smash Ultimate was, as the name of the game suggests, the ultimate package. Like, it had all of the characters from the previous Super Smash Bros. Games, and more, you know. Factor in, like, the new characters in the base game, plus all the DLC characters. So, yeah, this game definitely surpasses all the previous installments in terms of content. It really makes you wonder, like, how are they going to top this? And frankly, I'm not really sure. Some people are suggesting, you know, like, oh, hey, you know, why don't they just port Super Smash Bros. Ultimate to whatever the next console is? While that is a viable option, I think most people just want to see new games, myself included. And I think it's in Nintendo's best interest to create new games too, even if they're just recycling stuff from previous games, because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate already sold so many copies on the Switch. I think it's the highest selling Super Smash Bros. Game of all time, possibly one of the highest selling fighting games of all time. So if they were to just simply port this game to another console, I don't think the I don't think it would sell nearly as much as it did on the Switch, because, well, in that case, Super Smash Ultimate will just be a game that most people have already played before on the Nintendo Switch, so I doubt people will buy it a second time, especially at full price. Okay, people keep on knocking. I know what's happening. Anyways, yeah, so let's, so where can they go from here? Because I think we all know that Masahiro Sakurai, he's pretty burnt out. He's been pretty public about that, you know. It seems like every game since Super Smash Bros. Brawl, he's pretty much said, you know, this will be my last game. You know, developing these games is a very exhausting thing to do. So, I can imagine at some point he will want to maybe not necessarily retire, but perhaps take a role in future installments to where, you know, he's still playing a role in the development of the game, but not as big a role. Like, he's not, you know, the one directing everything. He's, you know, just pretty much taking the back seat, you know, pretty much checking in time to time. Kind of like what, for instance, Toriyama does with, you know, like Dragon Ball Super. You know, Toriyama pretty much just writes the notes for whatever he wants the next saga to be, and, you know, Toei and Toryotaro pretty much, you know, build upon that in creating their own projects based off of Toriyama's notes, creating scripts based on Toriyama's notes. Obviously, creating like an anime or manga's quite different from creating a video game, but I think in principle I could imagine Masahiro Sakurai taking the backseat, similar to how Akira Toriyama does. Now, as for the question of what exactly they can do in creating a game that succeeds Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I think they shouldn't necessarily try to create a game that, you know, is like an expansion of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because that game already has like so much content in terms of, like, you know, the roster, and I think prior to even Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Sakurai mentioned, he suggested the idea of creating a Super Smash Bros. Game that has not a bigger roster, but rather a smaller roster. And obviously Super Smash Bros. Ultimate wasn't that. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate ended up having the biggest roster out of any game in the franchise. But I think the game that follows Super Smash Bros. Ultimate could be that, to where the roster is significantly downsized. So how do you do that? What I think they should do is create a game that focuses solely on Nintendo characters. Like, it's cool that Brawl introduced us to, you know, characters from, like, third-party game companies joining, you know, the Super Smash Bros. Roster in fighting against Nintendo characters. That was pretty cool, you know, just seeing non-Nintendo characters like Sonic, Solid Snake, Pac-Man, Mega Man go up against, you know, Nintendo characters. And of course, Super Smash Bros. 4 did that to an even greater degree, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate to an even greater degree than that. But I think the next game should sort of just return to the roots of the series, you know, how it was in Super Smash 64 and Melee, just going back to, you know, focusing only on having a roster consisting of Nintendo characters. And I know a lot of people may not like that, but I think that gives a chance for the developers to focus on enriching the game with content that doesn't solely revolve around the roster. It doesn't solely revolve around the characters. Something I feel like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was lacking in was, you know, a variety of new stages. Because most of the stages in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate just came from previous games. They didn't really have that many new stages. I'm not saying that they should completely do away with retro stages. They should definitely keep those around, but definitely in a smaller number, and focus just on giving us new, fresh and exciting stages. Wherein fights can take place. So, how big do I think the roster should be? I think it should be around the size as it was in perhaps Melee or Brawl. It doesn't have to be as small as it was in like Smash 64, just because I think Nintendo has grown so much as a game company since then. You know, so many new like IPs have been introduced since then, you know. But at the same time, I don't want to see them, you know, leave out characters from, you know, like older IPs who still helped to shape the history of Nintendo. I just think Nintendo should just solely focus on Nintendo characters in whatever the next game might be for the next Nintendo console. Another thing I believe Super Smash Ultimate was lacking in would be, you know, the adventure mode. I agree. You know, had plenty of hours of gameplay. That was quite satisfying, but I still think I preferred Subspace Emissary from Brawl because, you know, Super Smash Ultimate's adventure mode pretty much just felt like, you know, the events mode. You know, it didn't really feel like an adventure per se because, you know, each of the levels were pretty much just like mashups against like various enemies with certain like effects applied. You know, it wasn't really there wasn't really like any obstacle courses to navigate, you know, like in the style of a platformer. That's what I sort of liked about the adventure modes in Brawl and Melee. And not only that, but the game sort of had a weak story. The intro cutscene to the game, you know, definitely filled me with hope that this game would, you know, have a robust story like Super Smash Bros. Brawl did. But you know, as it turns out, that was pretty much like the only cutscene except for like, you know, some of the cutscenes later in the story campaign. And those cutscenes were basically just, you know, the final boss undergoing various transformations. And then there was, of course, one final cutscene at the end of the game, you know, basically just showing that the heroes saved the day. And, yeah, I don't know. There wasn't really, you know, as developed a story as there was in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, so that was a bit disappointing. I think in the next game that's something they could focus on, just an adventure mode that feels a bit more like an adventure mode. It'd still be nice to have as much content as there was in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. In fact, I think the format of the adventure mode in Smash Ultimate is what allowed them to create so much content, because there wasn't really so much an emphasis on, like, you know, platforming, going through obstacle courses, but rather, you know, just fighting enemies. But I think there's, you know, I think if they focus not so much on having a gigantic roster in the next game, but rather, you know, just providing a great overall package, that they can create an adventure mode that, you know, feels more like an adventure mode, but likewise has a lot of content as in Super Smash Ultimate. Now, another direction that they could go with the series would be perhaps creating a spin-off to Super Smash Bros. Many people have suggested combining Mario Kart with Super Smash Bros. And creating Super Smash Bros. Kart. Personally, I would be on board with that idea. I think that's that'd be a very interesting thing to do for Nintendo's next console. Another thing that they could do is create a Super Smash Bros. Game focused on one specific series from Nintendo. It could be, you know, like Mario, it could be Kirby. Well, I think Kirby, there's already like a fighting game. I think it's called like Fighters Deluxe. Never played it, but I mean, they could go that route. Pokemon, I mean, there's already like you know, there's already Pokken Tournament, but I mean, I suppose a Super Smash style Pokemon game would be quite worthwhile as well. They could do like Zelda characters. They could even do you know, they could even give Metroid fans something to look forward to in creating a Super Smash style Metroid game. Just because there hasn't been a lot going for the Metroid series lately. I know we're getting Prime 4, but they pretty much started over on the development of that game. I'd imagine for a Metroid Super Smash style game, they would have to create like a lot of new characters though, so I'm not so sure about that one. But point is, there are a lot of different avenues they can go down in creating a Super Smash Bros. Spin-off. And of course, you know, there are other ways that they can, you know, build upon Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as well. You know, creating better online gameplay. As for the partnership between Nintendo and Namco, that really raises the question of, would Namco help Nintendo develop the next Smash Bros. Game if they're focusing only on Nintendo characters? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I could honestly see it going either way. Who knows? Maybe they could include like one or two, possibly three, like non-Nintendo characters in the next Smash game. Just not as many as they did in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That was definitely, you know, perhaps going overboard a bit. You know, I liked it. A lot of people liked it, but, you know, I don't think that's really sustainable for the future of Super Smash Bros. Or else we're going to be getting a game with a roster that's so big that, you know, you just can't even really keep track. And, you know, that's a game that would take forever for Nintendo to make. And I don't think anybody wants that. Now, this could just be the Sonic fan within me speaking, but I think it would be cool if Nintendo and Sega teamed up in making a Sonic fighting game that's in the style of Super Smash Bros. With just Sonic characters. I think it'd be really cool to have like Sonic versus Shadow versus Silver, you know, Tails, Knuckles, Dr. Eggman, one of his mechs, Amy, Espio, Charmy, Vector, Cream, Blaze, just all these characters fighting a la Super Smash Bros. And in future games, while I could imagine perhaps some other non-Nintendo characters that they might add, like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, even like perhaps some anime characters like Goku. Honestly, I just don't want the roster to get too large. I definitely do think, like Sakurai suggested, that they should downsize a bit and just focus on creating like a balanced game, you know, a balanced package. What would also be interesting is if they created like a Mario-style platformer where you just have all these characters to play as from different Nintendo series. I'm sure a lot of people would hate that, but personally, I would like to see that just because, you know, platformers are pretty much my favorite thing. But anyways, those are just some of my ideas on where they can take the series from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate without, you know, creating a game that's too excessive, you know, that will pretty much leave, like, the development team at Nintendo feeling completely exhausted, and without them having to simply port Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and giving people a game that they have already played before. So, yeah, I'm gonna conclude the video here. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, and, thanks for bearing with me in the changing room at Goodwill. I'm sure there's, plenty of, you know, entertaining background noise for all of thee to decipher. This has been the imperishable Sammy Zenith, and I am signing out. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you agreed with what I have to say. Leave a comment if you have any additional ideas to what I suggested. And, you know, if you disagree, you know, I'd be interested to, you know, talk about that as well. Anyways, so long. Okay, this needs to be said about downsizing the roster. If they're really going to do this, they need to stop putting in so many Fire Emblem characters. They need to take some of the characters off the roster, because generally they just seem to be variations of the same character. Maybe some of their own, like, unique abilities, but for the most part, very similar to one another. We don't really need any more than, like, 4 Fire Emblem characters, in my opinion. Just take some of the Fire Emblem characters off the list, please. We don't need so many. And not only that, but I think Echo Fighters were cool as a one-time gimmick for Smash Ultimate, but I don't think they should do that again, especially if the goal is to downsize the roster. They should just focus on Nintendo characters who pretty much have their own unique identity for the most part. Not, you know, just take out all these, like, unnecessary characters. Like, I think even die-hard fans of Fire Emblem can agree with that we just can't have so many of these characters taking up the roster, because it's sort of dilutes the variety in the roster, in my opinion. I think quality matters more than quantity, and hopefully that's something we all can agree upon. Anyways, yeah, I just needed to you know, say that before I conclude the video, because I think that was sort of an issue with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. To add on to what I was saying, what Nintendo could do instead of downsizing the roster, which I think would be pretty controversial. I personally wouldn't be against it, but I know many people would. What they could do instead of that is perhaps just add some new gameplay elements, because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate brought perhaps the most refined version of the Super Smash Bros. Gameplay formula that we had seen to that date. It also introduced some new gameplay mechanics, such as the air dodge mechanic, and not only that, but the final smash meter. So perhaps even just keeping the roster the same size, but adding perhaps a few new gameplay elements could in practicality still make the next Super Smash Bros. Game feel like something completely new and different. As to what the nature of such a new gameplay element could be, I really don't know. That's something I would have to think about a bit longer, but if anyone who's watching might have any ideas, perhaps leave a comment, and perhaps I can respond, and who knows, maybe even talk about that in a video, perhaps. Otherwise, they could, I suppose, recreate the Super Smash Bros. Gameplay formula, as in, like, create a completely different gameplay formula. I feel like that would be the most controversial, though, because at that point, would it really be Super Smash Bros. Anymore, or would it just be the start of something completely different, just still under the Super Smash Bros. Name? That's for you guys to decide. Personally, I wouldn't be too comfortable with this. Super Smash Bros. Is my favorite fighting game series of all time. Not only because it has my favorite characters in it, but also because I think in terms of gameplay, it's more well-rounded than any other fighting game out there. So personally, I don't want them to change the gameplay style of Super Smash Bros. You guys can let me know what you think about that. Like, would you like to see them transition into 3D fighting? Or perhaps just something unlike anything we've seen before? I don't know what that would look like, but personally, I think I'd rather them just keep the current gameplay style. Like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, or, you know, you might as well just leave the Super Smash Bros. Series alone at that point, because if you're really burnt out, if they're really this burnt out with Super Smash Bros., then you might as well just let Super Smash Ultimate be the final installment altogether. I doubt they're going to do that, though, just because of the success of the Super Smash Bros. Series. Super Smash Bros. Is, you know, one of the best-selling fighting games of all time. Super Smash Ultimate is, so I highly doubt that they're going to, you know, just press the brakes on the Super Smash Bros. Series for good. Even if Masahiro Sakurai steps down, I don't think that's a death sentence for the series, because Super Smash Bros. Is owned by Nintendo. They can continue it if they want to, with or without Sakurai. I would like to see him continue getting involved in some way. He doesn't have to be, you know, directing everything like he has in the previous games. If he wants to take a smaller role in the future, I have no problem with that. What they could even do with, like, future installments is making it even more of a legacy feel than Super Smash Ultimate was, in adding, like, different graphic styles, like the Nintendo 64 graphic style, Melee, and then, of course, they can just have a modern graphic style. I think lots of people would like to see that. I think that's a pretty cool idea. I mean, hey, it worked in the recent Mario and Sonic at the Olympics game, so I don't see why it wouldn't work here. So yeah, leave a like, leave a dislike if you want Nintendo to remake Super Smash 64 with a funky mode included. Anyways, goodbye everyone. This is truly the end of the video. I promise.